Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And this is an extremely important video. And I'll tell you why in a very brief summary, and then I'll give you the information. The ANC are coming after your pensions in South Africa. They're going to clean them out, and guess where the money will go? It won't go to infrastructure, it'll go to the black privileged. Yeah, the ANC politicians, their mates, their families, etc., etc., etc. We know the process, don't we? Well, this is the story that's coming out of the Mail and Guardian, which is ironically funded by Open Society Foundation. Did you know that? Mail and Guardian, one of its major sponsors is Open Society Foundation, which is George Soros. This is what they say. About a year ago, during a question and answer session in the National Assembly, President Cyril Ramaphosa said South Africa should discuss using pension funds to finance infrastructure projects. Now the proposal has gained traction in an economy battered by the COVID-19 pandemic, and may I add, by the complete lunacy of this corrupt ANC government. Last month, when Finance Minister Tito Mboweni told Parliament's Finance and Appropriations Committee meeting about the supplementary budget, he said that if Regulation 28 of the Pension Funds Act was slightly amended, it would allow investment. Managers to invest a percentage of their funds in infrastructure in addition to immovable property. The ANC and Business for South Africa, or B4SA, recently released their respective economic recovery plans for the country. Both proposals said using savings and retirement funds to finance infrastructure projects with the purpose of driving economic growth should be looked into. B4SA was formed in response to the pandemic and represents a majority of business organizations. Regulation 28 controls the extent to which retirement funds may invest in particular asset classes. This is mainly to ensure that members' retirement annuities are protected from being invested in poorly diversified investments, such as South African infrastructure. Only 15% of member benefits may be invested in alternative investments such as private equity, hedge funds, and unlisted property. There is no allocation for investment in infrastructure. B4SA's Martin Kingston says the organization is encouraged by the government's call to place infrastructure development at the heart of the country's economic recovery. Long-term investment in the sector is likely to create jobs for low-skilled workers, and investment in bankable projects will drive much-needed growth and employment generally. Now, I just want to make a point here. Most of those pension funds, the private pension funds that they're going to be putting their hooks into, are owned by white people. Okay, so these are white people who are having their retirement funds stolen by the ANC government and put into infrastructure development. Now, guess what? Ramaphosa said quite clearly that coming out of lockdown, this is going to speed up black economic transformation. In other words, black economic empowerment, triple BEE, those sort of things are going to become statutory. They're going to be required for anyone to do business in South Africa. So they're stealing out of the white pension funds and they're putting it into infrastructure, which is going to go directly to the black privileged ANC elite, because they will be running these little businesses which will be developing the infrastructure to the exclusion of the white people in South Africa because of BEE. This is theft. This is cultural theft of the minority white population's assets, and it cannot be allowed to happen. I would love to see during the protest tomorrow in Cape Town and in Pretoria for people to stand up and just protest madly about this situation. This is crazy. This is blatant legalized theft of the minority group's assets. and their future when they retire. Anyway, let's continue. Kingston said there is a need to fund the state's infrastructure projects, and the effective use of retirement funds and savings could help close the gap. There is an obligation on asset managers to protect the value of their clients' investments and secure appropriate returns on assets, he says, adding that retirement funds should not be arbitrarily invested in sectors or projects without ensuring that no unnecessary risks will be taken with retirement money. Well, you put that money in the hands of the ANC cadres, and it's gone. That's what a good investment that is. Anyway, he says, this guy must be an absolute dope. If the trustees of the funds consider that it is appropriate, secure asset class to invest in, and they can receive appropriate returns, we support it. You've got to be an absolute clown to say something like that. Anyway, let's continue. Amending Regulation 28 to allow for the more effective use of people's savings and retirement annuities would create an appropriate regulatory environment in which to invest or lend, Kingston says. The regulatory environment should provide a clear understanding of the different roles, rights, and responsibilities that interest groups such as the state, the regulator, and the private sector would play in that investment. He said, we managed to do that in the renewable energy program, although stalled, and we can extend that elsewhere. Now, we know how well that went with Eskom. The PIC invested in Eskom. Guess what? No returns. And that's a going, once profitable state-owned enterprise. Imagine once the ANC get their hooks into new projects which are going to just be cleaned out by corruption. That is theft of pension funds. That is what it breaks down to. Last week, the ANC's economic head, Enoch Godongwana, said the party was in discussions with 20 pension funds, including the PIC, or Public Investment Corporation, which manages the government employees' pension fund, regarding amendments to Regulation 28. He said the ANC is not proposing that the state implements a policy of prescribed assets, but rather that the party is proposing a relook into Regulation 28. What they're looking at is a relook into further theft of the assets of the minority white population. If you got a pension fund and it's in South Africa, get the hell out of there. Get your money out of South Africa into a pension fund in America, Australia, Canada, somewhere in Europe. Get it out of South Africa. You're just going to be stolen blind. That's what they're talking about. This ANC government is communist. Think about it. They're communists. The National Democratic Reform, the NDR, which is part of the South African Communist Party, which is a huge... Ramaphosa is actually backed by the South African Communist Party, just for the record. They are so wanting this to go ahead because they will clean out the pension funds. The ANC said amending Regulation 28 to increase access to people's savings can help fund long-term infrastructure and capital projects. The party notes that development finance institutions face financial difficulties, which prevents them from fulfilling their mandates. The party's proposal says pension funds should be used to finance infrastructure projects that will be led by state development finance institutions. In other words, the gangsters. COSATU's General Secretary, Bheki Mshini, said the Trade Union Federation agrees in principle to amending Regulation 28 on condition that there is a balance between investing in high-risk speculative assets and in developmental projects where returns are more likely to be guaranteed in the long term. This is how things get twisted, okay? Let me repeat that. He says, and in developmental projects where returns are more likely to be guaranteed in the long term. Okay, infrastructure projects. You build a road using pension fund money. How is that going to give a return in the long term? Because in the long term, you're going to have to start maintaining that road. This is the BS that these clowns are talking. Anyway, he went on to say, there has to be a sober talk about workers' money, he said. It's not like it's sitting there in the banks and not being invested. The trustees want to ensure that their fiduciary duties are done, and the fund managers want to ensure that money is invested where there are healthy returns. The Southern African Venture Capital and Private Equities Association has also called for the amendments to Regulation 28 to support South African economic recovery. Well, what should be happening is these ANC thieves should be behind bars in prison, because that's why nobody's investing in South Africa. That's why these ANC gangsters have now got to go and loot what's left in the pension funds. This is shocking beyond belief. Absolutely shocking. Okay, let's continue. The association has proposed 2 amendments: the separation of hedge funds and private equity into independent asset classes, each with their own caps. It also proposes gradually increasing the private equity cap from 10% to 15%. This would allow pension funds to take a larger exposure to the entire asset class, enabling a higher degree of diversification. You see how they put a whole lot of fancy words out there that sound really good and really exciting, when all they're doing is they're stealing from you. This is called weasel words. Martin Kingston said, "If the trustees of the funds considered an appropriate secure asset class to invest in, we support it." The association's non-executive director, Langda Madonko, said amending Regulation 28 would not be unusual because, internationally, on average, investment in private equity is higher than the average in South Africa, and infrastructure is classified separately as an investment asset class. He says that should pension funds be used for infrastructure projects, the returns envisaged would vary based on the nature of the infrastructure that had been invested in. He said, "The rate of return is not set for energy, water, roads, hospital, or education infrastructure, but in most instances can be predetermined where there are upfront agreements on tolls, rentals, tariffs, and concessions that come with these projects. The advisors to the funds must also consider the longevity of the fund and the members' needs. Then the extent to which the products will deliver a return will be aligned to the overall objectives." Well, I can tell you right now, and I'm willing to put money on it, that if you have your pension fund investing in an ANC infrastructure project, you can kiss that money goodbye. It's that simple. Don't let it happen, guys. Be very, very careful about if you've got money invested in South Africa in a pension fund. My advice to you is to get the hell out of the hands of the influence of this corrupt ANC government. Please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Ring the bell for the updates. Please like this video. Please share this video. And above all, please stay safe.